The national news desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
I just spoke with the president about this, and he has directed his team here at the White House to begin reviewing aid that can potentially be cut in Portland.
Coming cuts, what other Democratic cities are seeing funding slashed as the shutdown continues amid violence in the streets? Plus, partial deal in the Middle East. President Trump's new message on the status of the war in the Middle East as Hamas signs off on only parts of his plan. And then sentence issued. Rap mogul Sean Diddy Combs learns his fate weeks after the trial that captivated the country. Good evening. I'm Taylor Murray. Welcome to the National News Desk, America's News Now. Well, the federal government shutdown continues as Senate lawmakers failed again to send the House-passed continuing resolution to President Donald Trump's desk. In today's vote, all but 3 Democrats again voted against reopening the government until Republicans agreed to extend health care subsidies expiring at the end of this year. The GOP says they will not negotiate until the government is funded.
Senate Republicans continue to vote on the same partisan Republican spending bill that's dead on arrival because it guts the health care of the American people.
No policy riders, no gimmicks, nothing in here that benefits Republicans. This is a straight-up 7-week funding resolution, and we need it to keep the government open.
As the shutdown heads into the weekend, programs favored by Democrats are now being targeted to be cut. The president meeting with Budget Director Russell Vought yesterday to discuss Democrat agencies that could be on the chopping block. Still no word from the White House yet on which agencies are being eyed to be cut temporarily or even permanently. But Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt did have this to say today on the potential layoffs.
The Office of Management and Budget is in constant communication and contact right now with our cabinet secretaries and agencies across the board to identify, unfortunately, where layoffs have to be made and where cuts have to happen. But again, the Democrats have an opportunity to prevent this if they vote to reopen the government. That is all this administration and the president is asking for. Vote for a clean continuing resolution to keep the government open.
The press secretary also addressed the Trump administration's pause of $2.1 billion in infrastructure funding for Chicago. In a post on X, the White House budget director says the move is to ensure the money isn't used for race-based contracting. Now, the pause impacts Chicago's efforts to extend its Red Line train, improving access for disadvantaged communities. Earlier this week, the director froze $18 billion for infrastructure projects in New York over similar claims. President Trump has authorized more federal resources to head to Portland immediately, following another night of protest at the ICE facility in the city that ended in arrest. The White House press secretary says these demonstrations that have been persisting for months have not been peaceful.
Since early June alone, Antifa terrorists have laid siege to the ICE field office in South Portland. These radical left-wing lunatics have violently breached the ICE facility by using a stop sign as a battering ram, hurled explosives and other projectiles at law enforcement, repeatedly assault and dox officers, berate their law-abiding neighbors, and have even rolled out a guillotine.
Today, a federal judge heard arguments over whether or not President Trump has the authority to send in the National Guard to protect federal officials. Judge Karen Immergut, nominated by Trump in his first term, is new to the case after the previous judge, Michael Simon, recused himself following a challenge by the Department of Justice. Judge Simon is married to a sitting Democratic congresswoman who is opposed to the deployment. The DOJ says this move was necessary for the appearance of impartiality. Now, Judge Immergut's ruling has not been issued, but could come as early as tonight. A controversial app that tracks the location of ICE agents is being pulled from Apple's App Store. The move comes as legal threats from the Trump administration continue. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story from Washington.
After weeks of mounting pressure, Apple has removed ICE Block, a popular app that alerted users to the presence of immigration agents nearby. The move came Thursday.
Right now is a particularly sensitive time as it relates very specifically to ICE.
Attorney General Pam Bondi confirming to Fox News Digital that DOJ officials pressed Apple to take down the app, calling it a direct threat to law enforcement.
Knowing where ICE agents are operating and broadcasting that publicly can bring a wide array of people who wish to do harm.
The controversy around these law enforcement tracking apps surged after an exponential increase in reported attacks on ICE agents in recent months and the deadly shooting last week at an ICE facility in Dallas. Authorities say the suspect searched one of these tracking apps before opening fire.
It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target.
In a statement, Apple said they pulled the ICE tracker apps due to safety risks. The developer of ICE Block, Joshua Aaron, telling CNN on Friday he's incredibly disappointed by Apple's actions. Political activist Laura Loomer highlighting another app called Red Dot, reportedly made by a U.S. Army lab researcher in Maryland. Apple and Google have reportedly since removed Red Dot from their stores as well. The DOJ has been monitoring these apps and their creators for months.
That is threatening the lives of our law enforcement officers throughout this country.
Back in July, Joshua Aaron defended his app.
It's protected speech under the First Amendment. There's nothing illegal about creating this app, and there's nothing illegal about using the app.
You have an absolute First Amendment right to track where law enforcement is and to talk to folks in your community about where they're located. Courts have repeatedly upheld that First Amendment right. So it's an uphill battle, I think, for DOJ to criminally prosecute an app.
And Taylor, before being taken down, ICE Block reportedly reached more than 1 million downloads.
Wow. And meanwhile, Kayla, the Federal Communications Commission is investigating a California radio station after it reportedly broadcast the live locations of undercover immigration agents. So what's the latest on that?
So this involves the San Francisco radio station KCBS. Back on January 26th of this year, the station broadcast the specific make, model, and locations of unmarked ICE vehicles during a deportation operation in East San Jose, California. That's an area known for gang activity. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr called the incident really concerning. The FCC launched a formal inquiry to determine whether the station violated FCC rules that require license holders to operate in the public interest. And Taylor, that investigation is still ongoing.
In Washington, D.C., Kayla Gaskins, thank you. The United States military conducted a new targeted strike on a narco-trafficking vessel. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announced the action on social media with this unclassified video. Look at your screens here. He says 4 narco-terrorists were killed. He also confirms that without a doubt, the vessel was trafficking narcotics headed to America to, quote, poison our people. President Trump posted on social media, Truth Social to be exact, this specific boat had enough drugs on it to kill 25 to 50,000 people. And Secretary Hegseth says these strikes will continue until attacks on the American people stop. Rapper Sean Diddy Combs has been sentenced to 4 years and 2 months in prison. The prosecution had asked for a sentence of more than 11 years. Combs said during today's hearing he took full accountability and responsibility for his actions. He was convicted on prostitution-related charges and acquitted of the more serious racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges, which could have had him facing life in prison. Continuing coverage on a big headline out of Iowa's largest public school system. The now former Des Moines school superintendent who was detained by ICE agents last week has been federally charged. Ian Roberts, a foreign African national, is charged with 1 count of being an illegal alien in possession of firearms. This is according to court records. Now, during a search of Roberts' residence and vehicle, 4 firearms were found, according to law enforcement. Roberts, who was already in ICE detention since it was discovered that he was allegedly living and working in the U.S. illegally, was arrested Thursday. A massive fire at a Chevron oil refinery last night in El Segundo, California, is now under investigation by the city and the company. Take a look at these videos here. Firefighters got it under control by this morning, but nearby residents were told to keep their doors and windows closed because of smoke. And the facility is the biggest oil-producing site on the West Coast. There have been at least 5 fires there since 2016. The Supreme Court says it'll consider removing a strict gun law in Hawaii. The law bans guns on private property like stores and hotels unless the owner explicitly allows them. The Trump administration wanted the justices to take the case, arguing the law violates the court's 2022 ruling expanding gun rights. Gun safety advocates argue the law is constitutional. Minnesota is seeing a sudden surge in measles cases. On Wednesday, the Minnesota Health Department announced there had been 10 new cases since Monday, bringing the total for the year to 18. The cases were all among unvaccinated people in the Twin Cities metro area and linked to either domestic or international travel. There have been over 1,500 cases in the U.S. this year, the most in decades. Well, some conservatives are criticizing the FDA's new approval of a generic abortion pill, but the agency says it does not endorse any product. The cheaper version of mifepristone is approved to end pregnancies through 10 weeks. The manufacturer expects it will launch in January. Meanwhile, anti-abortion activists have pushed Health Secretary RFK Jr. to reevaluate mifepristone. Coming up, the order President Trump is giving Israel and the deadline he's giving Hamas as he tries to end the war in Gaza. Then another radioactive shrimp recall, the products you shouldn't eat and where they were sold. Plus, FBI Director Cash Patel shares new information about Operation Summer Heat, his exclusive interview including where the National Guard could go next. We're back in 90 seconds. President Trump says in a new Truth Social post that he believes Hamas is ready for peace and that Israel must stop bombing Gaza. This after Hamas responded today to Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's request to end the war in Gaza, saying it accepts some parts of the proposal. Before that, President Trump put forward an ultimatum, saying a deal must be reached by Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. If not, quote, all hell like no one has ever seen before will break out against Hamas, end quote. Now, his plan includes releasing all hostages, disarming, and giving up power. Police say one of the two people killed in yesterday's Manchester synagogue attack may have been killed by police gunfire. The Greater Manchester Police Chief says the attacker did not have a firearm and only responding officers fired those shots. Police say they shot and killed a suspect minutes after he rammed a car into people outside of the synagogue and then attacked members of the congregation with a knife. This, of course, happened on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. 3 other people are in serious condition in the hospital. And we are also learning new details about the suspect, a 35-year-old British citizen of Syrian descent. The Guardian reports Jihad al-Shami was on bail after being arrested for an alleged rape. They also report al-Shami had other previous criminal convictions, but was not on the radar of any counter-terrorism officials. Yesterday's attack is being investigated as a terrorist attack. Police are also trying to determine if the suspect acted alone. Tariff revenues continue to come into the American Treasury, topping more than $200 billion. So, could that money end up in your wallet? Well, President Trump is suggesting it could, and as national correspondent Matt Galka reports, it's not the first time he suggested it this year.
President Trump is again pitching checks to Americans, calling it a dividend program from tariff revenue.
We also might make a distribution to the people, almost like a dividend to the people of America.
How much are you thinking for that, sir?
Well, we're thinking maybe $1,000 to $2,000. Be great.
Record numbers are coming in, with the Treasury Department saying the United States has collected nearly $215 billion in tariff revenue so far this year. The tariffs are one of Trump's top priorities, and there have been ongoing deals with countries around the world for higher tariff rates on imported goods. The president said the first priority is the country's $37 trillion debt.
Number one, we're paying down debt because people have allowed the debt to go crazy. But, you know, with growth, with the kind of growth we have now, the debt is very little, relatively speaking.
Tariff revenue doesn't mean lower prices. American businesses pay the higher import taxes and typically pass those costs on to consumers. The Yale Budget Lab estimates Trump tariffs are costing the average household an extra $2,300 for 2025 because of price spikes to things like food, electronics, and toys, to name a few. California Democrat Ro Khanna also proposed a refund check this week because of the higher prices.
All of us have higher prices for our groceries, higher prices for our housing, higher cost of living. So we should take this tariff revenue that's been an unfair tax and give it back to working families so that they can pay the bills.
The president also proposed a dividend check over the summer, something Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said probably couldn't happen right now.
I think that we're going to bring down the deficit to GDP. We'll start paying down debt. And then at a point that can be used as an offset to the American people.
The fate of the tariffs still up in the air. Congress typically has the power to set trade policy, and the Supreme Court will hear arguments in November on if the president exceeded his authority with new tariffs. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
That leads us to our question of the day. Do you think Americans should receive rebate checks from tariff revenue? To voice your opinion, head to thenationaldesk.com. Cracker Barrel says it has ditched the design firm responsible for that infamous restaurant chain's very unpopular rebrand. I know you remember. Cracker Barrel changed its classic logo and decor this summer at the direction of California-based company Profit. But they reversed course and brought the old designs back because of the intense backlash, including from President Trump. 2 types of shrimp are being recalled, one for possible radioactive contamination. Certain Seaport jumbo-size frozen raw easy peel white shrimp may have come in contact with cesium-137. Now, they were sent to small retailers in Alaska, Hawaii, and a few western states between July and September. And Scott and John's shrimp scampi with linguine is being recalled because of a listeria risk. That product was distributed nationwide in September. In California, State Attorney General Rob Bonta is urging residents who vote by mail to vote early to make sure their votes are counted in the special election coming up in November. Due to the changes by the U.S. Postal Service, ballots in rural areas might not be postmarked the day they were received.
So if you're 50 miles from these facilities on this map and you drop or you mail your vote by mail ballot on Election Day, it's not going to count.
It is unclear if this change will speed up counting for this year's election. California issues mail-in ballots to all residents. In 2024, more than 85% of the total vote was not done in person. Several close House elections were still being counted a month later. In November, California residents will be voting on redrawing their congressional maps. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in one California county where the housing market is at a near standstill.
In the foothills of Coarse Gold in Madera County, the land is quiet, and so is the housing market.
We have a flood of inventory over the last few years, and we just don't have the buyers to support it.
Homes are sitting
on the market for 6 months at a minimum to a year, past a year.
Showings are slow, and sellers, they're stuck waiting it out.
You may not get a single showing for the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, as crazy as that sounds, but that's just the current market that we're in.
Realtors say it's not the home prices keeping buyers away, it's the cost of fire insurance.
You're looking at the latest innovation in education at Onondaga Community College, the Micron Clean Room Simulation Lab, meant to prepare students for high-demand jobs in the growing chip industry.
They're learning how to problem solve, how to analyze things, and be able to keep the chip fab running.
Micron's partnership with OCC is designed to create a direct pathway to jobs, giving students the skills they need to step into the workforce. Students like Nicholas Hay.
If you told me 7 years ago that I would be here doing everything I'm doing now, I would look at myself and say, no, you're a little crazy.
Camped outside Olympic Hall at the home of the Seattle Seahawks.
I got here at 7:30 this morning. I wanted to make sure I was first in line.
Die-hard fans are celebrating 50 years of the franchise with a chance to take home a piece of team history at the first Seahawks garage sale. Dylan Belanger collects game-used memorabilia from every NFL team. And when the doors finally open, it's off to the races, with fans scouring through more than 1,000 collectibles from the team's archives.
I just got a few Richard Sherman balls just for friends and family.
Maybe some Christmas gifts. There's some cool clothes over there.
Everything on these tables costs between $1 and $250.
Coming up, FBI Director Cash Patel shares new information about the federal crime crackdown in our exclusive interview right after this. FBI Director Cash Patel sat down for an exclusive interview with Washington insider Armstrong Williams. Patel went into detail about the FBI's summer operation to crack down on crime nationwide. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, has more.
Patel sharing some new information about Operation Summer Heat, which just wrapped up in September. The FBI director providing updated statistics on arrests made and firearms seized, plus the future of the National Guard.
During an exclusive interview with Washington insider Armstrong Williams, Patel breaking down the numbers behind Operation Summer Heat, which targeted the most violent offenders in cities like Chicago, St. Louis, and Memphis.
In 3 months, Armstrong, Summer Heat had 8,700 arrests. In 3 months, Summer Heat had 2,281 firearms seized permanently off our streets.
Partnering with local and state officials, the operation started in June, just wrapping up last month. Patel saying the FBI followed one theme, quote, crushing violent crime.
One of this administration's key priorities. And we went into every single field office we have, 55 field offices scattered across the country.
Patel touting the operation despite some Democratic opposition of the efforts and his leadership. During a September hearing, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker accusing Patel of politicizing the FBI.
In the words of an ex-FBI official, you are overseeing, and I quote, generational destruction of the nation's premier law enforcement agency.
Maryland Representative Jamie Raskin making similar accusations just a day later during Patel's House Judiciary hearing.
7 months in, it's impossible to overstate the destruction, chaos, and demoralization you've brought to the FBI.
But in Thursday's interview, Patel focusing on the successes of the operation after claiming there was an explosion of crime during the previous administration.
We have to attack the criminal enterprises where they start and their entire spiderweb of networks across the country. And that's the beauty of Summer Heat. We went everywhere.
Patel also touching on what role the National Guard will play moving forward, saying they don't need them to be law enforcement, but rather
together help assist law enforcement.
What they allow law enforcement to do, the FBI, the interagency, state and local authorities, is to work safely within the city street corners to operate and conduct investigations.
Now you can watch Armstrong's full interview with Patel on our YouTube channel. Just search The National Desk. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
Coming up, it's a big day for Swifties, celebrating the release of Taylor Swift's new album. We'll hear from fans right after the break. Tonight, the National News Desk at 6 o'clock is featuring Taylor a little more than usual. I'm sharing the studio lights with another Taylor, this Taylor among the most famous women in the world. Where are all my Swifties at? The wait is over. Taylor Swift has released The Life of a Showgirl. The highly anticipated 12th studio album dropped at midnight, featuring 12 tracks and a nearly 42-minute runtime, and even a feature from Sabrina Carpenter. I love that track. I've, of course, listened to the whole thing between fielding emails, monitoring the government shutdown, of course, and I say, she's done it again. From her self-titled debut album that got me through those middle school heartbreaks, to listening to Red when I was up late studying for college finals, to The Life of a Showgirl on a Friday in my 30s at work. Taylor Swift's been there all along the way, and it's not just me. Fans across the U.S. are celebrating.
Well, I think for a lot of us, she's been with us our whole lives. Just everything, love and heartbreak, just every phase of our lives.
When I first got the first album, it was, her playing the teardrops on her guitar. So it's kind of cool to see my kids, become fans too. It's emotional, and it's exciting.
Very excited.
Yeah,
we're all big fans. Yes, we're all very big fans.
So if you're not a fan already and you're considering being a fan, the Swifties are ready to welcome you with open arms and friendship bracelets, of course. Taylor Swift's The Life of a Showgirl is available on all streaming platforms, including Apple Music and Spotify. All right, that does it for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Taylor Murray. Thanks for watching.